The cafeteria went dead silent. Marcus, the Bull Patterson, stood over the new inmate, fist clenched, veins bulging on his tattooed neck. Every prisoner in Block C knew what came next. The Bull didn't ask questions. He didn't negotiate. And he certainly didn't lose. But why wasn't the old man moving? The new guy, gray-haired, maybe 60, thin as a rail, just sat there, chopstick still in hand, calmly finishing his rice. Not a flinch. Not a glance upward. Just eating. What was he thinking? You deaf, old man? Marcus growled, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. I said move. That's my table. Still nothing. The guards along the perimeter shifted nervously. Everyone knew the rules. You didn't challenge Marcus Patterson. Not if you wanted to keep your teeth. The Bull controlled everything in this place. The contraband, the protection rackets, the fear. He'd put 3 men in the infirmary last month alone. So why wasn't this old man afraid? Marcus slammed his palm on the metal table, making trays jump. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. Last chance, Grandpa. Get up or I'll drag you up. The old man finally looked up. His eyes were calm, almost sad. Like he'd seen this movie before and knew exactly how it ended. Is this seat really worth the trouble? His voice was soft, barely above a whisper. Was he seriously asking that question? Marcus's face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. Did this fossil just talk back to him? In front of everyone? The Bull's reputation was built on fear, and fear required swift, brutal demonstrations. You've got exactly 3 seconds. The old man set down his chopsticks with deliberate precision. He stood slowly, his movements careful, almost arthritic. He looked even frilier standing up, maybe 140 pounds soaking wet, with a slight stoop in his shoulders. Every inmate in the cafeteria leaned forward. What was about to happen? Marcus grinned. This was going to be easy. He'd make an example of this disrespectful old fool, remind everyone why you didn't cross the Bull. He reached out to grab the old man's collar, and then something impossible happened. How did he move that fast? 1 second, Marcus's hand was reaching. The next, it was twisted behind his back at an angle that made several inmates wince. The old man hadn't seemed to move at all, yet somehow Marcus was face down on the table, his arm locked in a position that sent white-hot pain shooting through his shoulder. Let me ask you something, the old man said quietly, his voice still calm. Do you know what happens when you attack someone who spent 40 years teaching others how to defend themselves? Marcus tried to push up, tried to use his considerable size advantage. But every movement only increased the pressure on his trapped arm. How was this possible? He outweighed this guy by at least 80 pounds. I asked you a question, the old man continued. Do you know? I'll kill you. Marcus gasped, his face pressed against the cold metal. That's not an answer. The cafeteria remained frozen. No one had ever seen Marcus Patterson humiliated. Not once. Not ever. The guard stood paralyzed, unsure whether to intervene. Was this a fight? Self-defense? Who was the victim here? The old man released Marcus's arm and stepped back, returning to his seat as if nothing had happened. He picked up his chopsticks again. What just happened? Marcus staggered upright, his face crimson with rage and humiliation. Every eye in the room was on him. His reputation, the only currency that mattered in here, was hemorrhaging with every second of silence. You're dead, Marcus hissed. You hear me? Dead. The old man took another bite of rice. I've heard that before. That night in cell block C, whispers spread like wildfire. Who was the new guy? Where had he learned to move like that? And most importantly, what would Marcus do next? Tommy Trigger Williams, Marcus's right-hand man, sat on his bunk watching the old man through the cell bars. The new guy had been assigned to cell 47, 2 doors down. He was reading a paperback, completely unbothered. Boss wants you to know something, Trigger called out. The old man looked up. Does he? Nobody embarrasses the Bull and walks away. You made a mistake today. Did I? Trigger's jaw clenched. You think you're tough because you know some kung fu movie shit? This ain't a dojo, old man. This is Blackwater Federal. People die here. The old man bookmarked his page and stood, walking to the bars of his cell. For the first time, Trigger got a good look at his eyes. They weren't scared. They weren't angry. They were tired. Ancient tired. Like they'd seen too much violence and found it all pointless. What's your name? The old man asked. What? Your name. You have one, don't you? Tommy. But everyone calls me Tommy, the old man interrupted. That's a good name. Your mother gave you that. What kind of question was that? Trigger shifted uncomfortably. Yeah. So what? Do you think she'd be proud of what you're doing right now? Threatening an old man on behalf of a bully? The question hit harder than Trigger expected. When was the last time anyone had mentioned his mother in here? When was the last time anyone had made him think about anything beyond survival? That's not. Trigger stammered. Let me give you some advice, Tommy, the old man said softly. Whatever Marcus is planning, tell him to reconsider. I don't want trouble. I just want to serve my time and go home to my daughter. But if he pushes this, people will get hurt. And I promise you, I won't be one of them. Trigger backed away from the bars. There was something about the way the old man said it. No bravado, no threats, just certainty. Like he was stating a simple fact. The next day during yard time, Marcus made his move. Why did he choose the yard? Because the guards couldn't see everything. Because the cameras had blind spots. Because this was where real prison justice happened, far from official eyes and paperwork. Marcus had assembled his crew, 8 guys, all loyal, all violent. They cornered the old man near the weight pit, forming a tight circle. No witnesses. No escape. Time to learn some respect, Marcus announced, cracking his knuckles. The old man sighed. He'd been doing Tai Chi in the corner, slow, graceful movements that some inmates had mocked. Now those same movements seemed to shift, becoming something else. His stance widened. His center dropped. Could 8 men really lose to one old guy? Last chance, the old man said. Walk away. Marcus laughed. You hear this guy? Tough talk for someone who's about to. He didn't finish the sentence. What happened next would be replayed in prison stories for years. The first attacker rushed in and found himself flipped over the old man's hip, landing hard enough to crack his head on concrete. The second caught an elbow to the solar plexus that dropped him like a stone. How was he doing this? The old man moved like water, flowing between attackers, never where their fists landed. A palm strike here, a swept leg there. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Just 40 years of refined technique meeting prison violence. Marcus himself finally charged in, throwing a haymaker that could have broken bone. The old man stepped inside it, redirected the force, and suddenly Marcus was airborne, landing in a heap 6 feet away. The entire yard had stopped to watch. Even the guards were frozen in disbelief. In less than 30 seconds, all 8 men were on the ground, groaning. The old man straightened his prison uniform and resumed his Tai Chi as if nothing had happened. Who was this man? The investigation was swift. The warden, a stern woman named Patricia Collins, pulled the old man's file that afternoon. What she found made her sit back in her chair. James Chin, age 62. Convicted of involuntary manslaughter after defending his daughter from an attacker. An attacker who'd fallen, hit his head, and died. Self-defense gone wrong. 3-year sentence, first offense. But the file contained something else. Military service records. Specialized training. And a note from the prosecutor recommending minimum security, given the circumstances. Why had Chin been placed in Blackwater Federal? A clerical error. A simple mix-up in the system. James Chin should have been in a minimum security facility, not here among violent offenders. Someone had typed the wrong code, and now an elderly kung fu instructor, a man who'd spent 4 decades teaching discipline and restraint, was trapped in one of the nation's toughest prisons. Warden Collins made a decision. That evening, Marcus Patterson was called to her office. He entered with his usual swagger, though his ribs ached from the yard incident. Do you know who that man is? Collins asked, sliding a photograph across her desk. Marcus looked at it. A younger James Chin in military fatigues, surrounded by serious-looking soldiers. The insignia on his uniform indicated special operations. So he was military. So what? He was the hand-to-hand combat instructor for Navy SEALs, Mr. Patterson. For 20 years. He's trained some of the deadliest fighters in the world. She leaned forward. And you tried to bully him over a cafeteria table. Marcus's face went pale. Navy SEALs? That changed everything. You didn't mess with people who'd trained the military's elite. He's being transferred tomorrow, Collins continued, to a facility more appropriate for his case. But before he goes, you're going to apologize. Apologize? I don't. You will apologize, Collins cut him off, her voice steel. Or I'll put it in your file that you started a riot. 3 more years on your sentence. Your choice. What could Marcus possibly say? The next morning in the cafeteria, Marcus approached James Chen's table. The entire room watched. This was unprecedented. The bull never apologized. Never showed weakness, but here he was, standing before the old man, ego crumbling. I was out of line, Marcus forced out. Each word seemed to physically hurt him. I apologize. James looked up from his breakfast. He studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded. Apology accepted. Sit down. Marcus blinked. What? Sit, James repeated, gesturing to the bench. Let me tell you something before I leave this place. Confused, Marcus Saturday. Do you know why I didn't hurt you worse? James asked. In the yard, I mean. I could have. But I didn't. Do you know why? Marcus shook his head. Because I saw something in your file once. They posted it on the board by mistake. You're in here for armed robbery. You needed money for your little brother's surgery. You made a terrible choice, but you made it for love. How did he know that? I hurt someone for love too, James continued. My daughter. A man was attacking her. I defended her. He died. Now I'm here. He paused. We're not so different, you and I. We both broke the law trying to protect someone. The difference is I learned that violence always costs more than it's worth. Marcus stared at his hands. When was the last time someone had talked to him like a human being? You're strong, James said. Really strong. But strength without wisdom is just destruction. You could be a leader here, Marcus. A real one. The kind who protects the weak instead of preying on them. The kind your little brother could be proud of. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Was it shame? Regret? Hope? Why are you telling me this? He asked quietly. Because I'll be gone tomorrow. Transferred. But you'll still be here. And these men, James gestured to the cafeteria full of inmates, they follow you. They could follow you toward something better. Or toward more violence. That choice is yours. The two men sat in silence for a moment. Finally, James stood to leave. Take care of yourself, Marcus. And think about what I said. Wait, Marcus called out. Will you teach me? Before you go? James smiled, the first real smile anyone had seen from him. I've already taught you. You just need to remember the lesson. 3 months later, Warden Collins noticed something remarkable in her incident reports. Violence in Block C had dropped by 60%. Marcus Patterson had started a meditation group, ridiculous as it sounds, one guard noted in a report, and was actively breaking up fights instead of starting them. Tommy Trigger Williams had enrolled in the prison's GED program. The cafeteria table that had started everything? It was now shared. A dozen inmates sat there together, including Marcus, talking and laughing like actual human beings, and somewhere in a minimum security facility, James Chin received a letter. The handwriting was rough, unpracticed. Mr. Chin, you probably don't remember me, but I'm the guy who tried to take your table. I wanted to tell you I got my brother's surgery paid for. My lawyer found a fund for families of inmates. He's okay now. Walking. I wanted to thank you for what you said. About being a leader. I'm trying. It's hard. But I'm trying. Also, I'm reading that book you mentioned. The Art of War. Still don't understand most of it, but there's one line I keep thinking about. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. I think I get it now. Thank you for not hurting me worse than you did. But more than that, thank you for seeing something in me worth saving. Marcus, James folded the letter carefully and placed it in his notebook. He thought about that morning in the cafeteria, about the angry man who tried to intimidate him, about the fear and violence that permeated places like Blackwater Federal. Had anything really changed? Maybe. Maybe not. But one man had. And wasn't that where all change began? With a single person choosing to be different, he returned to his Tai Chi practice in the yard, moving through the ancient forms, thinking about his daughter waiting for him, about the years of teaching that had led him to that strange, violent moment. And he smiled. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't won with fists. They're won with words, wisdom, and the courage to see humanity in people who've forgotten they have any. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show mercy, and sometimes, just sometimes, a prison cafeteria table becomes the place where everything changes.